Welcome to the Vacation Rental Success Podcast. The Vacation Rental Management Growth Accelerated Coaching Program starts tomorrow, on Thursday, September 5th. If you're not taking a few minutes to find out more about the program, you can still click the link in the description or visit vacationrentalformula.com to get more information. But don't be deterred if you missed the September 5th start date, as there is still time to get signed up, watch the replays of any sessions that you've missed. If you have any questions, reach out and DM Vacation Rental Formula on any social platform or email us at high5@vacationrentalformula.com. Let's get this episode going. Here's your host and coach, Heather Bayer.
Would you love to hire a vastly experienced and savvy executive to help your business grow, but you just don't have the budget for it right now? It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, and one that can be resolved by getting that person to come in either short-term or part-time. It's called fractional leadership, and the trend is on the rise across all industries, and ours is no exception. Today I'm talking to two experienced professionals who serve multiple companies in a fractional role. Really interesting conversation. You're going to enjoy this one. This is the Vacation Rental Success Podcast, keeping you up to date with news, views, information and resources on this rapidly changing short-term rental business. I'm your host, Heather Bayer, and with 25 years of experience in this industry, I'm making sure you know what's hot, what's not, what's new, and what will help make your business a success. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Success Podcast. This is your host, Heather Bayer, and as ever, I am super delighted to be back with you once again. This is the sort of day that when I was running a property management company, we just waited all summer for, the last week of the season. Because up here in Canada, our summer season, our really busy high season does not finish until just after the Labor Day weekend, because our schools don't go back until then. So, kids go back to school next week, and that's when it all began to trail off, and we all heaved this massive, massive sigh of relief. And, even 2 years down the line, it still gets me. I've been thinking about this right all the way through the summer, each Saturday when it was pouring with rain. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, they've got 150 check-ins going on this afternoon and it's pouring with rain and everybody's unhappy and looking for somebody to blame. So, that came to mind around 4:00 every Saturday in this summer, which in fact, I would say 60% of the summer Saturdays were rainy this year. So I haven't spoken to anybody from my former company over the summer. I will probably catch up with them in the next few weeks once everything's quietened down a bit and just find out, how it went. Anyhow, I'm still really pleased that I do not have to be involved with that anymore. But of course, I am still involved in the vacation rental business in a big, big way. I'm really looking forward to our coaching program, which starts tomorrow. And if you have not joined, it's definitely not too late. There is a link on the show notes to the website where you can go and have a look and see what's going to go on over the next few weeks with all our expert speakers. It's going to be awesome. The other thing is that I'm excited about today is that as I publish this, so another episode is being published on the Alex and Annie podcast, and they interviewed me. So over there, I'm actually talking a little bit more about the whole issue of education in this space, and I actually tell them quite a lot more about the coaching program. So I won't say too much more here. I would suggest once you've listened to this, you go on over and listen to Alex and Annie. There will be a link to that on the show notes as well. So today, we're tackling a topic that's gaining momentum, but it's often overlooked. It's called fractional leadership. We often think about, when we're thinking about fractional people within our companies, we tend to think more of the virtual assistants, the people that come in at the foundation level and cover administrative roles and perhaps reservationist type roles. But did you know that, according to recent studies, nearly 60% of small to medium-sized businesses in the US are now using fractional executives to fill really key roles in their business? And the trend is on the rise, particularly in industries that require specialized expertise, but may not have the budget or the need for a full-time executive. And our industry is no exception. In fact, as this demand for this flexible leadership grows, more and more vacation rental businesses are turning to them. And these are experienced professionals. And they take on executive roles part-time. If you're looking on LinkedIn, you might find titles such as Fractional CEO, Fractional Marketing Officer, Fractional Operational Officer, something like that. You can see the word fractional comes in that title. And they're taking on these roles part-time, and they're providing strategic guidance to companies that need this expertise, but without the full-time commitment. So to explore this, I'm thrilled to welcome today Alex Husner. And of course, you know Alex from Alex and Annie, and Michelle Marquis from the Marquis Effect. And if you go to VRMA or DOM, you will have probably come across Michelle. She has been around the industry for quite some time. They are both seasoned experts in this space. And today they're going to share their insights on how fractional leadership is transforming businesses. We're going to talk about the benefits and the challenges, because there are challenges too, and what it actually means for the future of our industry. So without further ado, let's move on over to talk to Alex Husner and Michelle Marquis. So I am super delighted to have with me today two exalted professionals in this field, and that is Michelle Marquis of the Marquis Effect and Alex Husner from Directly Alex, and of course the co-host of the Alex and Annie podcast. Welcome, both of you. It's just such an honor to have you both in this same little square here.
The pleasure is all ours, and I feel the same about being on here with the two of you. So this is going to be fun.
Let's start with you, Michelle. Just give us a little bit of your background in this industry. I know that you've been around just a few years.
I actually was a hotelier that started managing inventory that was not owned by the resort that I was at. But because I had a hotel background, I treated it like it was a hotel, even though I didn't own the inventory, which meant I was doing revenue management and distribution back when, distribution algorithms meant the Expedia rep come into town and I have Cosmos with him. I got more bookings when I did. So there was no such thing as an algorithm back then. And then I moved on to the technology side with a company called Navis, and worked for Navis for a real long time. And then from there, I've been with several technology companies. And now I am a fractional revenue officer, strategist, executive for both property management companies and suppliers.
That's terrific. Tell me about Shortcuts as well, because that's on your LinkedIn profile.
So Shortcuts started as when you hire a fractional, what you're looking to do is to get something done quicker than you could on your own by hiring somebody that maybe is growing into the company or growing into the position or already in your company. And so we looked at it as a shortcut. So Jeff Robertson, who's very, very good at marketing, both for the property management side and the supplier side, and I were like, really, that's why you hire someone and spend the money, is you want a shortcut. So we looked at it as kind of a consortium of things. We would do webinars and stuff. We still do together, but we just decided to open that up to other fractional and other consultants. So we're going to be doing something a little bigger than that, so that, property managers and suppliers have a place to go when they're looking to find an expert that is not somebody selling something.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to drill down a lot more into that as we go through the conversation. But Alex, you and I have talked more in the past week than I think we ever have before. Because I've been on the, I was interviewed for the Alex and Annie podcast, and here you are. And I think these are being published on the same day. So that's going to be fun to push these out together. Alex, just give us a bit of a background, because you've got such a brilliant background too. So can you share that?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. So I live in the Myrtle Beach market. I've been here for about 16 years now. 13 of those I spent as chief marketing officer with Condo World here in North Myrtle Beach, actually. And that was a business that we grew from 150 condos to over 500 and actually became an OTA for the entire region and had really, leaned into building the Condo World brand on a house of our own land, as we like to say. And we're able to do some really amazing things from the technology and marketing side that allowed that to happen. But did that for many years, was very involved with Chamber of Commerce and tourism boards here in the area. And 2022, I left Condo World, was ready to try something new and just have a little bit more of a challenge, and went to Casago, which is a vacation rental franchise business, and really, was CMO, but was really in charge of business development for them for the East Coast, and got to travel the East Coast and beyond and just really see firsthand what a lot of management companies were going through and the issues that they were facing. And it was a wonderful experience for me. But I learned in that process that, one, what we were doing at Condo World was very different than what most companies are doing. But I saw a complete need for companies to be able to have better access to, true marketing strategy that's beyond just diving into tactics. And it really just inspired me to go out on my own, which I did earlier this year, and start my own business. And now also in that fractional role as a fractional chief marketing officer, chief growth officer for vacation rental companies. And now I actually do have some suppliers that I'm working for as well. So it's been a lot of fun. And of course, the podcast that I host with Annie Holcomb, Alex and Annie, has been a wonderful part of kind of tying all these things and experiences together. And I'm in and I can't get out now. Vacation rentals kind of get you trapped. So,
and you made an announcement today about a new product. So share that too.
Yeah, actually. So about 8 months ago, right when I was embarking on my new business, I had the opportunity to come in as a founder for a new platform called Happy Guest. And essentially, Happy Guest is a guest journey platform that is based on psychology. And there's a lot to it. But the way that the platform was designed, both aesthetically and how it functions in the background, really supports, building a guest journey that is anticipating questions ahead of somebody having to ask them, is providing the information at the right time, is helping managers reduce the amount of back and forth communication that they're doing with guests. There's upsell components to it, damage waivers, rental agreements, but all done in a very easy way for managers and for hosts. And yeah, it's been exciting. And we've got 1,000 properties on the platform now. We had 14,000 reservations over the last several months and are officially taking it to market now. So,
well, you kept that quiet.
It's been a lot of fun. Yes, I know. It's been really hard. I've posted a couple of teasers, but we've kind of kept it in the background of, just wanting to be in stealth mode for a little bit, but time to announce now.
Oh, well, that was great to see. You're going to explore that. Michelle,
thank you.
And she's coming to the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I love all the suppliers. I think, vendors in general just kind of get a bad rap, but it's like, I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. I mean, all the education and the, bringing of information to our industry, a lot of it comes from the vendors. I mean, like, they're on top of the technology and where things are going, and they have to be part of these conversations. But, suppliers are your friends. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, because I did that, came to the dark side 2 years ago when I sold my property management company. And now, when I fill in the the Verma stuff and vendor. Oh, right. That's what I am now.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to talk about, you both mentioned fractional leadership. So we're going to explore that because Up until relatively recently, my sort of version of fractional employment was virtual assistants. That was it. You want somebody that comes in and will just do a couple of little jobs for you, and I don't think they call it fractional employment, but it's a sort of it's a similar model. You're just you're employing somebody for a specific purpose for a shorter period of time or part-time. And when I went and explored it, and the whole fractional leadership, fractional executives, and I thought, wow, what a great area this is, because so many small and medium-sized companies have probably got the real need for leadership and executives in their company, but they can't afford it. It's just way beyond their budget to hire somebody full time. And I sort of looked up the average cost of an executive to hire somebody full time, and it's quite high, way beyond the means of many smaller companies. But let's kick off. Alex, can you explain from your perspective what fractional leadership actually means, and how you see it from your perspective?
Yeah. So, in most cases, as it relates to our industry, I think, fractional leadership typically comes down to either a fractional CMO, a fractional CFO, a fractional CGO, a fractional CTO. I mean, it's like your C-level team that you're able to bring in a strategic way. And, the benefit of it is, I mean, one, the cost savings, but two, you're getting access to, that executive level experience, leadership that when you really have strategic initiatives that you're trying to push, these are the people that you need to, get the ball rolling. And in my case, I mean, I'm new in this, but all the clients that I started working with, I'm working with them on a long-term basis. So it's not necessarily for me at this point as much like contract or project specific. It's more been truly fractional, that they want me part of the team, but they know they can't have me all the time, but they have me as a sounding board and very much involved in a lot of parts of the business. But I think it allows companies to be able to bring in people that their team can also learn from, and hopefully you can help their team develop, and either by bringing more people onto the team or just really streamlining how things are done, and just having that access to additional knowledge outside of where their walls are of wherever the business is.
So I just found it really interesting. All those you said chief CGO. What's the G?
Growth officer.
Growth
that's
officer.
Kind of an emerging title, I would say, and that's kind of where I fall in. Is really, I mean, I oversee marketing, but my whole life has been overseeing marketing, but marketing from the lens of not just the tactics, but how are we going to grow this business? There's a lot of ways to grow a business. I mean, sometimes it's not related to marketing at all. Sometimes it's more about profitability and figuring out, what needs to be done differently, or systems and processes that it kind of falls into that whole umbrella, which I love, because I don't like staying in just one lane. I like being able to see a lot of things.
What about the difference? You mentioned consultant. Michelle, what's the difference between a fractional leader and a consultant? Because can't people just go out and hire a consultant? They want something done, they get a consultant in to do it. What's the difference?
Yeah. When I think of a consultant, I think about short-term projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Come in, advise, they may or may not take your advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting on the outside. Whereas someone that is a fractional, she gave a lot of the titles, but as a fractional, for me, there's a few different things. One is it's not necessarily cheaper, right? Because you could you could get somebody full-time with a title of chief revenue officer, chief marketing officer that has good experience, right? But you're going to get experience that is less than somebody than when you hire, Alex or I. Our experience is, it's a combination of time on earth and the variety of experience that we both have. And so when I sit as a fractional, I sit in on the executive meetings. I ask cross-functional questions. I help write the budget. I help evaluate the budget. I help the C-level with growth strategies, meeting with investors. it is like you're an executive on that team. You're just not full time. That's really the difference. So you're also invested, engaged. Like I had a year contract with Extend Team as a CRO, and it just ended. So I just had this is the first month in almost my entire career where I have not paid attention to month end projection, past goals.
Wow.
Career, because right now most of what I'm doing are projects. And so for me, that was like, wow. So when you hire a fractional, they care about your business. They care about the culture of your company. They care about, even if things aren't going right in operations, a fractional person isn't going to go, yeah, that's not my job.
Right.
Because an executive, yes, your function is on revenue or it's on marketing or it's on growth. But the truth is you're an executive on the team, just part-time.
Yeah. How do you get across to potential companies that are looking to hire somebody fractionally that you are at that level? Because I think we had this discussion the other day. I think it was with you, Alex, that companies can think that they're taking on a chief marketing officer and they're going to come in and do all this stuff. They're going to sort out your social media campaigns and they're going to sort out your content management. How do you get it across to them that this is not your role? You're there as on a more strategic level.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it, for me, at least, it's kind of varied by the client. In some cases, I'm really in the weeds. And in some cases, I'm very much where I prefer to be, which is more from the strategy seat. But, I've tried to I don't mind rolling my sleeves up, but, I know that long term, that's not a good use of my time with clients to be, having me handle some of those things. But, ultimately, I think it's about setting the expectations up front. And I will say too, I mean, the first client that I got before I'd even announced, but a good friend of mine, Sarah Franzen, had, she's a fractional chief revenue officer. And so one of the clients that we share together is Host and Home in Hilton Head. And she had connected me with them before I'd announced I was even going on my own. And they had said to her, like, we're looking to hire a fractional CMO. Do you know of anybody? So I think people are starting to understand, where that type of a role plays in, especially that they're a fairly new business. So it's like they have, big expectations and the ability to get there, but they know that it doesn't make sense full time at this point. But I think just setting the expectations, and my process always starts with an audit of some sort of whatever is the issues that they're bringing me in on. So we have a pretty good game plan by the time that is done, which is a very comprehensive process of, this is where you're at. These are my suggestions. This is how I suggest you get there. And at that point, they can decide to do it on their own, or, it does lend itself to, I have the ability to execute and set this up for you. So that's helped me, at least. And I think the clients have understanding what is going to happen when we start working together.
Yeah. What about you, Michelle, from your side?
Yeah. So like an executive on any team, you prefer, and Alex said it perfectly, you prefer to be in the strategic seat where you're talking about how are we going to get these things done and talk a little bit more big picture. But very few companies in our industry are so big that they have an army of people that can deploy things.
Yeah.
So that also means that sometimes you just need to get in the weeds and get things done. So a piece of what I've done is that some of the things that need to get done when I'm helping property managers specifically, I work a lot in the distribution and revenue side. So, like optimizing leads, paying me to go in and change the content or the photos or making sure buttons are clicked makes no sense. The customer, that's just too expensive. So I just explain it that way. But I do have a resource that I use, more than one, that will go do that optimization for a lot less money. So I tell them, we're going to have this done by, this person, because it's not going to cost you as much as if I do it,
Yeah.
So, and setting the expectations up front of what will get done. Another area that I help suppliers with is, I'm going to call it pipeline management, but really what it is How do you set up your sales system? And this is true with business development at property management companies too. Sales systems to know what is in your pipeline and what's moving from stage to stage, that sort of thing. Most companies don't have somebody that know how to do that. So that's an area like I'll go ahead and set up for them, even though it's more expensive for me to do it than somebody that knows a CRM. But there's in our industry, there's not a lot of people that can actually know how to do those things. So the example of something that's a little more tactical, but that's what you got to do. And it's just something adding to something that Alex was saying, and that is in today's economy and in the vacation rental and short-term lodging industry, we are not in a marathon. We're in a foot race, right? How quickly can we get things done? Because this is all about who's quickest to market and who grabs the market share first, right? So what we are is we're a shortcut. So you could hire someone to do these things, and the way that they're going to get from A to B is they're going to go here and go, oops, we're going to go over here, and I made that mistake. And it's going to take them longer to get to the same place. That when you hire a fractional, we're just going to, no, we don't need to take that detour because this is why, let's just go here. And so you're going to get there quicker when you hire someone that has actually made the mistakes.
Yeah.
Because experience that's all it is a bunch of mistakes that you then don't do again.
Yeah.
So I was really interested when you talked about Host and Home, Alex, that they have not just one, not just two, but I think they have more fractionals on their team. How do you all integrate into their team as well?
Yeah. So for the Host and Home's case, Sarah was the first one to come on board, and then I was second. And then we've got two to three other fractional type roles within the company. So fractional business development, and then fractional distribution management. And then a little bit more underneath me, I don't know if I'd call them fractional, but they're contractors that we've hired are a lot of different marketing vendors and things, but everybody kind of works all together there. I will say just in general for me, because I was in an office for 13 years, being remote is a little bit of a challenge, but you get, the more and more you do it, you get used to it. But I think just, making sure that everybody's on the same page. We have a weekly meeting where everybody is there, and it's an onboarding meeting. So it's not necessarily marketing or specific to revenue or these things, but we're all on that call. So we all kind of know that, and they're onboarding like at pretty high velocity. So we're understanding, the pace of what's going on there, hearing what owners are saying in this process, and, what's in that pipeline. And then we have our own individual meetings and, our own huddles and times that we get together. But just, I think having that one ability for everybody to be in a shared quote unquote room, it really helps with that.
Yeah, it just intrigued me that, if you've got everybody that's working, all these people are working fractionally, how do you, and you say you do get together, but, what if something comes up and you have to speak to somebody and they're not engaged with your company at the moment? They're doing doing some fractional work for somebody else. It's a sort of logistic challenge, isn't it?
It is, and I'd be interested to get Michelle's take on this too, because I've heard of different ways of doing this. But to this point, I have certain time blocks during the week, during certain days where I know I'm going to be working on specific things for a client. But in a lot of cases, you are juggling a lot of things at the same time. So that happens all the time. If something pops up, I'll have to pause and go over to here, and it's not a big deal. But I've had some people say that they really block out weeks. So like 1 week they're working on this client, the next week the other client. But I'm curious, Michelle, what you found to be the best strategy on that too.
Yeah, I kind of do it like you do, and that is when I need, I have set meetings. As a fractional, you'll have one-to-ones, you'll have executive meetings, you'll have budget meetings, you'll have planning meetings, you'll have offsite strategies that get blocked. At one point, I think 50% of the time that I was working were one-to-one meetings with different people in the organization, right? Yeah. But then other things do come up. And so Slack, Google Chat, all become text, and you have to multitask. Now, what I did, I would evaluate my time every couple of hours if they weren't booked meetings, and I actually kept track of everything in a 15-minute increments where I would put the time like a lawyer does.
Yeah.
So I'm also keeping track of how much time I'm spending with each client. Now, as a fractional, will I say that they got more time than they paid for? Probably, because if they sent me a text on a Saturday morning, unless I'm doing something that I don't want to interrupt, I'll respond to it, and that's not getting billed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If the CEO emails me on a Saturday, he must need something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of gray area in how you work on things, and I think that's just the way it is with a fractional. If you have a good one,
Yeah.
I've worked with
Yeah.
other fractionals where they go, I don't respond. I'm from 8 to 11, and after that, you're going to have to wait till tomorrow morning. And that to me is not a fractional. That's not somebody who's invested in your business.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think just, my experience and past history of what culture was, and I mean this in the best of ways, but I'm always working on the business I'm working for. I just learned that with Condo World. It's like your brain doesn't shut off just because it's 5 o'clock. And so, it doesn't bother me to email at night or text at night or over the weekend. But it does, I think, when you start a business like this, you get so much information and advice from people saying, well, you have to make sure you do this. You have to make sure you do that. Unless something gets wildly out of control for hours, I'm not worried about the time tracking as much. And I guess, in my case, these are more long-term engagements. I think, with project type work and shorter term engagements, I think that can be important, but I'm still learning in all this too. So I'm only 8 months into actually being in this role, but really enjoyed it so far.
So do you need particular traits, personality traits? I mean, we talked about multitasking and being able to invest yourself very deeply into a business, which is of its nature a shorter term. I mean, you said you're in there for a longer term, Alex, but it's still a fractional role. So I think what I'm trying to get at is, do you need to be a particular type of person to be a fractional leader?
I think you have to be flexible, and I think you have to be somebody that can juggle multiple tasks at the same time. I don't think that I would ever want to be a fractional leader in multiple different industries. I think that could get probably more complicated, but all the clients that I work with, whether it's a supplier or a property manager, we're all kind of talking about pretty similar things and initiatives. So it's not like you're jumping from working for a car dealership and then now you're working for a hospital and you've got to really reset your brain on that. It's pretty streamlined.
Yeah, your thoughts, Michelle?
Yeah, I don't know about personalities as much, or personality types as much as if you have, let's just say you have 3 fractional roles. That's going to be pretty hard. That's going to be pretty hard because, usually when you're doing a fractional, the way I've been doing it is that you give them an hours range. Okay, so that means you only have so many hours. Let's just say they go 15 to 20 hours a week is what I want you to work. But all of a sudden there's this big thing they want to get done and they want to get it done in 4 days. Oh, and by the way, there's all these other things. Then you have to talk about like expectations and you have to say, well, look, based on our budget and what we've agreed to on time and focus, I'm not going to be able to get that done in 48 hours unless we change something else in the priorities that we've discussed and agreed are our priorities, So I don't think it's a personality trait as much as it is somebody who is a good executive.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? And a good executive means that they have already done successfully what it is you want them to do in a previous role. And so they don't have to think about, oh, what do I need to do this? They know what they need to do. Like I have a repertoire, and I'm sure that Alex does too, of things that I've already done that I go, okay, well, I did something similar. Let me pull that up and see how I can adjust this for this customer because it's a similar process.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Let's flip it over now to the employer. At what point do they Do they ever know they need somebody fractionally, or do you need to persuade them that it's should be a fractional role and they don't actually need you full time?
Yeah, I think in my case, I mean, I have a couple or I have one that specifically the host home that wanted a fractional leader before he had met me. The other ones that I work with, they knew me and wanted to work with me and knew that I could work with more than one client now. So it's like, there wasn't any really convincing on that side, but I've been asked to come full time quite a bit, but I'm, really enjoying what I'm doing right now and going to, give that definitely enough time before I would make a decision to go full time back with anybody. But I think, when a company realizes they need this, is they're realizing that they want to do something different. They need strategic leadership. They need somebody that's going to bring a different perspective and experience to the table than what their team has, and maybe what their, the vendor network, supplier network is excellent, and I think a lot of companies lean on suppliers for input on a lot of different things. But if they want somebody that's going to be, kind of subjective, coming in and looking at everything with them and getting more in the trenches of what the business is doing and how to improve it, then that's when a fractional role makes sense, whether if it's a long-term or a short-term initiative.
Yeah. And, I would add to that, for example, in one of the projects that I had, they've initially wanted me full time. And I'm like, look, the size of your business, how you're growing even now, you really shouldn't spend that much full-time role. You really shouldn't. You've got leaders in place that maybe aren't ready. So let's get the leaders ready. Yeah. So, I spent a year doing this for one company where this is what I think it's going to take. It's going to take 3 months for this, 3 months for this, 3 months for this, 3 months for this. And then I think the people in place will be ready to do this on their own, which is exactly what I did. And exactly, the person that was there was like, just soaked up the coaching, wanted to know everything they could do to be the best possible director of sales that they possibly could. And by the time that I left, they were.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other ones, Heather, just in general, I've never had to talk anybody into it like Alex, you know what I mean? Like you really this. And, you get emails from people that say, do you want more customers? It's like, hang on.
Yeah.
But so, a lot of times it is, well, instead of full time, let's talk about the major projects you want to get done. So I've been working with a technology company, a software company, at looking at their sales organization and the foundations of sales training. So like Alex said, I did an audit. I interviewed people. I sat on calls. I listened to calls. And then I prepared a training that I'm delivering. I'm on day 3 today, and it's a 5-day, 3 hours a day for 5 days training, which is going to give them so much in this much investment, right?
Yeah.
Rather than bringing on someone full time to look at the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing with what you're doing too, Michelle, it's like once you, if it's a year-long engagement, or no matter how long it is, if they need something, they're still going to reach back out to you. It's not like once that's done, you can't ever work with them again. Like you're available to work with them in different capacities, because you already are familiar with the business. It's like, so now they've got somebody that's like kind of a go-to for them.
That's right.
Do these businesses start out saying, I want to hire you for a year or 6 months? Do they know at the outset how long they're going to need you for?
I think with one of mine, I think the initial goal was and actually I think I proposed that. I said, let's just do 6 months and we'll see where we're at that point. But initially they were thinking, we want to hire somebody internally, like we want you to get everything up and running, and then the internal person can go with it. But I think in this process, it's like you build relationships with these people, and they want you to be around in some capacity. So it's like, well, we could hire somebody, but I think everything's working pretty good how it is. So let's just keep going with it. But, I've got another technology supplier I work with that, just signed a 1-year contract. So that's more kind of what Michelle's talking about. So I think there's different ways and expectations that can be set from the onset, depending on what works for the business and for the fractional person.
Yeah. And, I've even had founders who are fairly early and they think they want to hire me or they think they want to use my network to get more sales. That's what they think they want to do. But as I talk to them, I'm like, really what they need is weekly conversations.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a couple that I do that. I charge them a retainer and I meet with them once a month for an hour. We talk about things. We keep a list of things that they will do between this meeting and the next meeting. Then we go back and talk about those things. And what's interesting and what I have found is that even that is too much for some founders because they're small enough, they can't actually deploy a lot of the things that you're recommending they do. So it really is, Heather, all over the board. And part of Alex and I's job is to understand what they're, really understand what's the end thing you're trying to do and what's the best way to use me to get there.
Yeah.
So how does somebody who's considering this, they're listening to this and they think, oh, this is cool. I could get somebody really experienced on my side for 6 months to a year. What things do they need to think about before they start looking? And then the second question is, where do they find people?
I'm going to take number 2. Let Michelle do number 1, because I think one of the interesting things that I've noticed, in the last year or two, there are a lot more people that have been in the industry as long as we have that are now going out on their own. So I think it's becoming more of a trend. And I think people are realizing I don't necessarily have to work for a company and I can use my experience and my network to not worry about not having work. I've built what I've built and I can do it on my own. But I think that's a really amazing opportunity for vacation rental companies, suppliers, everybody to be able to, tap into that knowledge. But I think there's more of them out there. And honestly, I think there's going to be more people that also follow this same path after seeing, the success of some of us that have been doing it for a while.
So how do they find you? Is it just
how do they find you? I think LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn is kind of this the downtown of vacation rentals. I feel like for all of us, but I would say reach out to your suppliers that you work with and ask them if they know anybody, because the suppliers are typically a little bit more connected into the network side of our industry, and they see what people are posting, but it's not. And Michelle, your business, what you're doing now, you're kind of connecting people in that way, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm trying the shortcuts to revenue. I've got we'll call it a database of about 20 people. I want to keep it to individuals, not a technology company that solves a problem. But
yeah.
So I'm trying to put together that list, but long term, I'd love to have a website that's in categories where it's a listing, maybe even customers can review them, things like that. In my career, what I try to do is I try to be a conduit to people and processes. How can we connect people with other people that will help them all be more successful? And so that is part of what I've done my entire career. So this shortcuts things just seems like the perfect avenue to do that. And then you said, what was your point 1?
What was my first question? Yeah. What do they need? When somebody's thinking about this, what should they be considering before they reach out?
Probably the biggest thing is, are they open to change?
Yeah.
Open to look at their business and not be defensive about how they've done something to date and be open to doing things differently, because that is something that I have run into where they go, yeah, no, we don't want to do that because, and one because is fine. But after a while you kind of go, okay, look, did you hire me to keep doing things the way that you've always done them? Because don't hire me for that. Promote somebody internal that you can just tell what to do every day. You can go, now go do this. But if you're looking for somebody to shake it up a little bit and ask the hard questions, that's when you bring in somebody that has experience that can look at ways you're doing things and give you ways to be successful quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. That's just asking the hard questions. And I can see that. I know from running my own business, if somebody had come in and, it was my baby, and somebody comes in and says, you've been doing that wrong for a long time, and I'm going to give you, and it's like, no, because of course at that point you've got to admit that you haven't been doing as well as you could have been.
But it's not wrong. It was the right thing for the time.
Yeah.
But as you grow, and companies go through influxes of really hard growth. And I think it's like the first number is 10 million. The next one is, I think, like between 15 and 20, and the next one is 25 million. Those are like they go as you get bigger too. But it is the hardest time in a company's life. But that first 5 million is like, if you don't get the foundation right, and this is speaking to suppliers, right? If you don't get the foundation right, having the jumps of growth are going to be really, really, really difficult. So you have to be thinking things that are around scale, that you go, what we're doing now is fine, that's work. And you go, yeah, but everybody's doing it differently. How do you, when you bring somebody in, how do you show them how to do that? That's just an example of, like, well, we've always done it that way.
Yeah.
That's when there's 3 of you, there's now 8 or 12 or 50 or, the organization I'm working for right now has 30 salespeople. When there's 30 salespeople, you need to have some scalability.
Yeah. A big pipeline coming through. Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, but I want to get from your experience the advice that you would give somebody who is, and we've covered a few of these, but the final piece of advice that you would give somebody that's out there thinking that they're ready to hire.
Ready to hire. Okay. I thought you meant ready to become a fractional. If they're ready to hire, well, if they feel that they're ready to hire, they've already gone through thinking it through, and they know that they have a need for it. But I think when you're talking to people, I'd make sure that, one, you're not looking at this person, even if they are short term. I wouldn't look at them as a short term person in terms of making sure that you really have a good connection with them, that they culturally will fit in your organization. I mean, you want this to be somebody that if you could hire them full time, you'd do it in a second, because it's somebody that you really believe in their skills and their experience and their personality, and it's going to all match well, because that can be a hard thing too, of, the owner of the company hires a fractional to do something, but if that person doesn't really jive with the internal team, and they're going to be putting their foot down on anything that they don't want to change, even if the owner says they want to change it, that can be really hard, And I think for the owner, making sure that his team understands or her team understands the purpose of bringing in this fractional person, and that, they believe in you, and they believe in making these changes that they're going to come up with. So just getting team alignment, I think, is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, that's a good one. What do you think, Michelle?
I would say make sure you're very clear in your expectations and in your priorities, those two things, because if you're not super clear on those things, you might not have the results you want. And Alex said team alignment. So if you bring somebody in as a consultant, they're an outsider. And so people are not want to share with them, maybe not. And I don't even mean that they would hide things, but sometimes when you come in as a consultant, you shine light in dark places.
Yes. Yeah.
Dark places, they want them to remain dark.
Yeah.
And so when an outsider comes in, it's pretty hard to get the team behind that person, to see them as somebody that's there to help, not tattletale on what they're doing right or wrong.
Yeah.
So team alignment piece, I would say. So expectation, priorities, and that everybody sees that this person is part of this team. So forthright in your information.
And finally, to what you thought I was saying last time, Alex, what would you say to somebody who's out there looking for thinking that they want to get into this?
I would say don't overthink it. And I think initially I really and there's so many different ways to do this kind of a business, and how you charge for your services and things like that, and how you do contracts and how you set things up, that I really kind of got just stressed out about figuring all of those things out. And you eventually you do figure out what works, but you don't have to know everything to get started. And, talking to people who have done this before, that really was helpful for me in the beginning. But you don't have to know everything to get started. The main thing is what you know, because the experience that's led you to be able to do something like this, and focus on that, and just focus on, in conversations with potential clients, making sure that there's somebody that it goes both ways, that this is a company that you would really enjoy working with, and that you would work for them full time if you wanted to be a full-time employee. Think of it from that lens. Like, could I spend every day with these people? Like, you want to like the people that you're working with and build up that camaraderie to feel like you're part of the team. But yeah, just don't overthink it, and look at the company with the same lens that they should be looking at you with.
Yeah. And, I would add, don't try to be all to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Don't. And if you're stressed about making money and getting work, it'd be easy to do that. Oh, I can do that. I can do that. Be niche focused. Look, I am the best in the world at this.
Yeah.
I know where I can add the best value. So when someone comes to me and says, I want to redo all of my branding, I don't do that.
Yeah.
To Jeff Robertson. Could I figure it out? Have I been through enough branding workshops that I could figure it out? Absolutely. Would the customer know? Probably not. But that's what I'm going to be the best at. That's is going to be what just flows for me. If somebody wants to rewrite their entire marketing strategy, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to unless it's a B2B strategy. And that I would go to market for B2B. I would be all over. That's one of my strong suits. But get your focus, get really good at it, and don't do things you don't do. As a matter of fact, you come across so much more of a consultant and valuable if you say, I can't help you with that, but you know who could?
Yeah, exactly.
And your world, I said earlier, the LinkedIn network of bringing value and being a catalyst will serve you for a long, long, long time. The other thing I would say to somebody who is thinking about doing this is, for me at least, I cannot believe I did not do this sooner.
Yeah, you said that to me a few months ago. I remember that. And I agree too. I totally agree.
Just go. And literally, I went in a 24-hour period from poor me to whoa. What?
Yeah.
Hang on. This is too much. And with enough consistent work that, frankly, I'm making more money than I've ever made, and I'm working less. And I love it because I do this project and then I do this project. Right now, I have property managers and suppliers that I'm working for, and I love it. I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, I would echo that. My husband said to me the other night, he's like, I just feel like you've been so happy these last few months, and I haven't seen that in a while. And you do feel that way. And I think having that variety of the different companies and people and projects you're working on, it is fun. It can be a lot to juggle and manage, but it is very fulfilling. And the companies that will bring you on in this fractional role, they really want your knowledge, at least the person who hires you for sure. They want to know what you know, and you end up feeling very valued in these relationships, and the ones that I've been in so far, which has been really, really nice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you both about this. I've learnt so much about this whole area that, a month ago, I really didn't have any real knowledge. I kept seeing it all on LinkedIn, fractional this and fractional that. I'm thinking, what is this thing? But it seems to be a real thing in this industry now, and more people are taking advantage of it. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your insight, your expertise on this. I'm sure it's really useful to everybody out there. So if you want to get in touch with Alex or Michelle, I'll have their information, their LinkedIn profiles on the show notes, so you can go take a look. So, once again, thank you so much for joining me, both of you. It's been lovely.
Yeah, very fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. A great topic, and something that you don't really talk about a whole lot, or isn't talked about a whole lot on podcasts. So I'm appreciative that you brought us in for it, and just enjoyed the conversation with both of you.
That was great. What a great conversation. Just after we'd finished, and Alex said, this is really good. This is something we haven't talked about on podcasts before. So I always love this, to actually, get in and talk about something that's not been addressed. So I hope that was I know it was a lot of really good conversation, good knowledge, good sharing on the topic of fractional leadership. So as I said, if you want to get in touch with Alex or Michelle, their information is in the show notes. Of course, you can just go to LinkedIn, and if you're not already following Michelle Marquis or Alex Husner, you can go find them there. And, please take the time to reach out to them and ask any other questions. So that's it for another week. As I said right at the beginning, our coaching program starts tomorrow. It's not too late if you want to get into this, if you want to hear from some more of the great people in this industry. Over the course of 8 weeks, we'll be bringing 8 weeks, 8 sessions, 8 90-minute sessions, each one with the support of an expert speaker. And if you go to vacationrentalformula.com, on the homepage, you can click through from there to the coaching program. You'll see who's talking, when they're talking, and why you should really register right now. Make that decision, and I'll see you tomorrow if you are listening on the day that this podcast was published. If you come in a couple of weeks later, it's not going to be too late to register, because every single one of the sessions will be recorded. So if you do join later, the only thing you're going to miss is the opportunity to ask one-to-one questions on the live recording. Otherwise, you'd still be able to go to the community and ask your questions, even if you join in the second or third week. So if you've got any questions at all about it, you can connect with me and I will share everything I know, which is a lot since I created it. Anyhow, that's it for this week. Thank you so much to Alex Husner and Michelle Marquis, and I will see you again next week. It's been a pleasure as ever being with you. If there's anything you'd like to comment on, then join the conversation on the show notes for the episode at vacationrentalformula.com. We'd love to hear from you, and I look forward to being with you again next week.